Hello, Mental Health on the Mighty. My name is Chrissy Hodges, and I'm very sorry that I'm late. I was supposed to be on at 4, but had some technical issues, so I'm actually doing this on my computer. I would prefer to do it on my iPad, but I just couldn't get it to work. So here we are. So it's going to be a little bit blurry, and but hopefully the signal is good enough. And yes, my name is Chrissy. As you can see in the title, I'm a certified peer support specialist here in the state of Colorado. I do referral and resource consultations for individuals living with OCD worldwide. And I'm also the author of Pure OCD, The Invisible Side of Obsessive Compulsive Disorder. And today, well, first of all, thank you, Mental Health on the Mighty, for allowing me to come on every month and talk about a topic of my choice, which I really try to cater to our community, regardless of what symptoms you may live with, or if you're diagnosed with a mental illness, it doesn't matter. We all experience the same type of stigma. We all experience the same type of shame, embarrassment, guilt. There's so much that we have in common. And sometimes that gets lost in separating each of the disorders. So I really like to come on here and talk about all things pertaining to living with a mental illness, which I do. And but today, with that said, I'm going to contradict it completely. And I am going to talk a little bit about OCD, which is obsessive compulsive disorder, today. The reason why I wanted to talk about it is, and if you're friends with me on Facebook, you probably saw this. I posted last week or the week before, I can't remember, time is getting away from me. I posted about speaking at the American Association of Suicidology. Gosh, I hope I pronounced that correctly. Here in Denver, Colorado. I was on a panel with Joelle Norse and Lori Johnson, who is at In Focus Counseling of Denver here. And I'm just gonna get real here for a second. We were pretty disappointed and pretty mortified about the fact that it was a 5-day conference, and we were waitlisted to be on a panel chat about OCD and suicide, the prevalence of suicide. And when we finally got the call of, yes, you're going to be part of the conference, it was 3 weeks beforehand, and we were the last panel of the entire conference, where most of the conference had already packed up, which I normally wouldn't be all that concerned about. You know, it certainly isn't ego. We were the only panel on OCD in a 5-day conference about suicide. And we were pissed. And if you've seen my video with Rudy Caceres, thank you for including me, and Sarah Schuster at the actual conference, I expressed this, not as much as I would like to express it. I didn't let the anger and the fury go. And I won't do that today either. But to me, it was just, another indication of how OCD isn't taken seriously. So today I wanted to talk to you, and if you have OCD, you're going to understand this. If you don't have OCD and you're supporting someone with OCD, you might understand this. If you are curious, I would love for you to listen. Give me some feedback. I can see the comments over here, but I will tell you, oftentimes when I'm doing videos, all of a sudden the comments stop, and then I go back later and it just looks like my computer stopped feeding them. So if I'm not answering, or if you ask a question, I'll answer. I'm not just being rude. It's just that I really can't see them. So I'm hoping to shed some light to you today on what it's like to live with obsessive compulsive disorder, and how suicidal thoughts and suicide even plays a part in that. Now, I thought for a second before I started doing this video, okay, well, I can go up and look up a bunch of stats and yada, yada, yada. But that was like, whatever. Like, if you want to know stats, you can go look them up. But in my opinion, and a lot of the therapists that I work with and speak with and who I'm friends with would probably agree with me, and people living with OCD, is that the stats on suicide, suicidal thoughts, suicidal contemplation, suicidal attempts on OCD, the stats are low. And there's reasons for that. The reality is a very, very different picture. And so today I wanted to talk to you about the reality. We can look up stats all day, but that doesn't necessarily reflect what's really going on in the community. And I am wanting to shed some light today in hopes that in starting a conversation, it can be taken a little more seriously moving forward. So let's just get down to it. For OCD, there's several types of themes. There's several types of ways it can manifest. It's all OCD. OCD is OCD, so I don't want to get away from that. But there are different types that people experience, which you may not have heard of. If you've just heard of mainstream OCD, you've probably heard of contamination, organization, all that stuff. All still very important, all still very torturing and tormenting and important to shed light on. But when those things are in the spotlight for years and years and years and years and years and years, and the other themes of OCD get no attention whatsoever, people will go for years suffering with OCD and not even know it's a mental illness. So I can use my own lived experience as we go along to illustrate some of this. A huge theme, I guess we call it, or how OCD manifests, is the nickname pure OCD. As you can see in my title that I wrote up there, I wrote a book on pure OCD. And obviously there's going to be some controversy about the term pure OCD, yada, yada. People are like, oh, it's not pure obsession, blah, blah, blah. Well, who cares? It's our community. And the people that are suffering with these themes of OCD need to know that we are part of a community. And we don't really give a damn what it's called. So if you're out there giving a damn what it's called, like, deal with it. Talk with the community and see how kicking up a fuss about it is actually hindering people instead of helping them. Rant over. So pure OCD is where people are experiencing intrusive, unwanted, sometimes taboo, sometimes very scary, sometimes confusing thoughts about what they think they might be or how they think they might feel. All of us get them. I'll give you an example. But it's accompanied by mental rituals. So these rituals are just behaviors. They're part of how we're dealing with this onslaught of massive intrusive thoughts. So we don't even know we're doing the compulsions until someone, a professional, points it out and helps us to eliminate them. So a great example is if you're driving or if you're walking or if you're biking down the road and you see someone like on the side of the sidewalk, or, you know, if you're driving, you see them like right by the road, maybe waiting for the bus, and you think to yourself, I could just swerve and hit that person and then keep going. I mean, that is an intrusive thought. Like, we don't want to do that. We don't want to cause violence to people, right? But if you think it, you might think, oh my gosh, let me change lanes and get away. I hope I don't do it. And someone without OCD is going to think, that was bizarre. I'm glad I didn't hit that person and now I'm in jail, you know, or whatever. A person with OCD is going to think, why did I just think that? What does that mean about me? Did I hit the person? Should I go back and look? I mean, if I thought it, it must mean something. And that must mean I'm a bad person too, because what kind of person thinks these thoughts? And then the spiral goes and goes and goes. So if you know anything about my videos, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So I don't want to be redundant. But this can attach to so many different themes of OCD. So yes, the fear of violence, the sexual intrusive thoughts, fear of, you know, I get an inappropriate sexual thought about my family member or an animal or a child or the same sex. If you're heterosexual, then all of a sudden you have a sexual intrusive thought about the same sex. And you're like, wait a minute, wait, no. And then if you're homosexual and then you get an inappropriate sexual thought about heterosexual, then you think, oh my God, wait a minute, am I now heterosexual? What's going on? It's all intrusive, unwanted thoughts that confuse you, and you go, why? That's the key. That's the why, right? So this type of OCD doesn't get a lot of press, okay? And why? Because it's, you know, we don't really want to, you know, a lot of people don't want to blast across the billboards like, you know, am I a pedophile because I'm having these thoughts? Or am I going to murder my family because I had a violent intrusive thought? Or do I not love Jesus because I had a bad thought about religion? It attacks things that are personal to us. And then we can't escape. And then we start doing compulsions. And it's terrifying. And we become very isolated. This was my life growing up. It started when I was 8 years old. And it started with the fear of vomiting. So exposure, and I had been exposed to vomit before. It wasn't a big deal, but that day everything turned around for me, and I started doing compulsions 24/7. And then it turned into violent and sexual intrusive thoughts. And my brain thought I must have done something wrong and I'm being punished by God. Scrupulosity. That's when religion gets involved. So I lived with this, having no idea I had a mental illness, which most people don't, as I have written down here. There's a lot of different stats that people quote, but the reality is most people live for an average of 10 to 14 years before they know that it's OCD, before they get a correct diagnosis and get the right treatment. I mean, that's a long time. That's a long time to be suffering, to be tormented. The way I like to put it for people is OCD, and I'll get to this in a minute about how people trivialize OCD. It's that and ADD. People just love to trivialize it and just throw it around like it's, a party favor. But let me tell you something. When you're living with OCD, and especially if you don't know it's OCD and you're just really tormented by your thoughts, you're dealing with it 24/7. So even if you do speak up and tell somebody, maybe you tell a family member, or you tell somebody, hey, I'm having some intrusive thoughts, that person is likely going to dismiss you. And it's not that person's fault. They don't get it. You don't get it until you're living it. That person is likely going to go, oh, just don't worry about it. You're not this, you don't think that. It's okay. Just stop worrying about it, which we wish could happen. Problem solved day one, but 12 years later, that strategy doesn't work. And so it's this. The way I like to describe it is, can you imagine waking up and you're fighting off mosquitoes every day, all day, every day, all day, every day, all day, and nobody else can see them, and then they sting you and you're like, oh my God, I didn't fight hard enough. And oh my God, I'm just so tired. And I don't want to, I hope I don't wake up and I'm getting stung again, or I have to fight this stuff off, and nobody can see it but you. And you're fighting and you're fighting and you're fighting every single day, and they just won't go away. And you don't know why. And nobody really believes you because they can't see it. They can't see them. That's when you start to feel hopeless and depressed. And you start losing the will to find a solution because you don't have the energy to find anything, because you're just fighting all the time. It's a torture machine in your brain. You can't escape your brain, people. And you know this. You know this because you were here in this community, so you get it. So in fighting every day for years and years, like I said, the average, 10 to 14 years, 24/7, you develop hopelessness. I was talking to Lori, who's the therapist that was on the panel, and she said it's a different kind of depression that people with OCD experience. It's a depression that is an absolute result of living with OCD. And it's common. It's the, I'm so tired, I'm so exhausted, I can't keep doing this. As someone who works with people around the world in peer support, I hear that all. I can't keep doing this. I have said that. I can't keep doing this. And that's when the suicide thoughts creep in. That's when I don't see any hope in sight. I don't see how this is going to get better. And nobody takes me seriously. And no one's believing the severity. And I'm too scared to Google what's going on. Because I'm scared that I'll find out that I'm nuts. Or I'm scared to find out that the intrusive thoughts are true and that I am a horrible, horrible person. Because intrusive thoughts are just that. They are intrusive. You don't want them. You don't understand them. They are confusing. They don't align with your values. They don't align with your wants and your needs, and you can't stop them. And eventually, if you're losing the battle with your brain, you start to think, maybe I'm just a bad person. Maybe I'm just awful. Because there's no other logical explanation about why a smart, creative, intelligent, funny person can't just stop thinking about this crap. And people live like this for years because they're too scared to ask for help. And then oftentimes, and I will tell you, I get more emails than I want to get, even though I'm so glad that I get them, of people saying, I already planned out suicide this weekend, and then I found your video on YouTube about this theme of OCD, and now I have hope. So people get to a place where they're so desperate, they're like, well, if I'm dead, no one's going to care what my computer history says about me. So I will type in, am I this? What do these thoughts mean? And luckily, there's so much information out there now that, fingers crossed, the right information pops up, and then people see, oh my gosh, this actually is an illness. And sites like intrusivethoughts.org, the OCDstories.com, OCDonline.com, these brilliant sites come up and say, you have hope. Then the next, and I'm not trying to have this video be such a downer, but we do need to start shedding the reality of OCD. And as I especially saw that at that conference, I'm doing this whole video if you missed the beginning, because at the American Association of Suicidology, there was only one panel of OCD. Last panel, we got chosen at the very last minute, and it was bullshit, to be honest with you. That's how I feel about it. It just shows how OCD isn't taken seriously. So I'm starting the conversation, so that's why I'm talking about this. So all the obstacles that we face, I just told you the obstacle of even finding out it's a mental illness after living for so long, and then finding out that everybody and their brother says that they treat OCD. Oh, it's an anxiety disorder, so I treat it because I'm a therapist, not me. But, you Google Denver, there's 200 therapists that treat OCD. Do you know how many really do? Maybe like 12. So then you go through the whole other round of, oh, well, look, I have a therapist, everything's going to be okay. Oh, wait, they're doing psychotherapy, they're doing EMDR, they're doing all these therapies that do not work for OCD because they're not specialized, but people don't know that because there's not enough information out there, and OCD isn't taken that seriously. So they do therapy for months and months or years and years, and they're like, why am I not getting better? What does that mean? Does that mean I'm untreatable? Does that mean that I don't have OCD? And maybe I am an awful person, so here we go right back to square one. And that's when the hopelessness comes in. That's when maybe I'm just a bad person, and all the doubts creep in again. And it's so scary. So we're talking about all the years piling up for people with OCD. When, hopefully for people finally come across the correct information and find out that there is specialized therapy, exposure response prevention. It's part of cognitive behavioral therapy, but it is behavioral therapy that teaches you to slowly face your fears. That's why I do what I do. I try to help connect people with therapists that can help. I know that therapy is so expensive because insurance won't cover it, because yet again, there's another reason why OCD isn't taken serious, because insurance doesn't think it's that serious, so they won't reimburse. So see, we are hitting obstacles along the way while the years of suffering are piling up. So there's that. And there's one more thing. With all this that happens with OCD, then we have to face a media who thinks that OCD is the biggest party favor that there is. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you, you may disagree 100% with what I'm about to say, and that is okay. And you're more than welcome to message me about this, and I will have a dialogue about it. But I do not care people need to hear this message. I am somewhat loosely quoting Joelle when I say, when I see somebody sharing a meme on Facebook or a GIF or writing something about how they are so OCD, or their OCD Christmas lights or their OCD Christmas sweater or whatever the F they're sharing, do you want to know what it makes me feel like? You're making fun of a disorder that makes me want to kill myself at times. And yeah, I can laugh at my disorder, and yeah, I have a sense of humor. So don't come at me with that. Like, oh, you must be a downer and you should be able to laugh. No, I laugh. Go to my YouTube channel. You'll see. I make it as light and empathetic as I possibly can for my community. But if you don't have OCD, you don't have a right to make fun of me and what makes me feel like I want to die sometimes. And and I will preface, it's not just OCD. People do it with ADD, they do it with bipolar, they do it, they do it with all kinds of mental illnesses, and it's just stupid. And all we have to do is just take a hot second and change the language and not go around and say, people in this world are too PC. Well, if I'm too PC because I think it makes me feel, I have it written down, it makes me feel like I'm weak, like no one takes me seriously, and that my brain disorder and the fact that I survived a suicide attempt is just trivial to you. If that's PC, then sign me up. Then I'm PC and I don't care. I don't think people suffering is funny. I will talk with the people I meet with, and we will laugh at sometimes the absurdity, and sometimes we laugh through tears. So, with that said, when people trivialize what I have been through, when people trivialize what I see people every day suffering with and writing me and saying, a high percentage of people, I've been contemplating suicide. I'm so glad I found your video because I was thinking about attempting suicide. When people post things, what that communicates to me is that I need to lighten up about an illness that almost destroyed me. That I'm weak because everybody has a little bit of it. So what's wrong with you? No, I actually have a diagnosable disorder. You are just being a jackass and think that because you have a compulsion that you can classify yourself as OCD. But the third is the most important. What you're telling me is that you're not taking me serious. And you're not taking a disorder that people die from seriously. That doesn't say anything about me. That says something about you. Now, I know that this is a strong message, and I'm certainly not trying to create conflict, and I'm not trying to be confrontational. But something switched inside of me at that conference. Something. And Lori felt it, and Joelle felt it. Lots of people felt it. The people that actually came to the panel felt it. And it was this: there are not enough people standing up to say that it's not okay. And same goes for other mental illnesses as well. Because if we start letting things slide as a community, we're not supporting one another. You better believe any day of the week I see a meme come across anything that says the weather is so bipolar today because it was sunny in the morning and raining in the afternoon, you better believe I'm going to jump on and defend my friends who live with bipolar because they suffer. And we don't want a world that thinks suffering is funny and okay on their soapbox of you're just too PC. I guess I'm just too PC. And I'm okay with that. So like I said, I can't see any of the comments, probably a good thing. They've stopped. But that's my message today. I know it was a little bit upfront, and I would love to have a discussion with you if you want about OCD or the severity of what my life has been like with OCD and the severity of so many people who disclose their struggle with me confidentially with OCD, and I see them suffering in the midst of also sometimes when I am not doing well. And so I think it's important, and it's important to have a body of people starting to stand up and say it's not okay. Because OCD is a torment, it's a torture chamber. It's living in a torture chamber in your mind. And we need more awareness, and we need more people to know that it's okay to speak up and to ask for help, and that you will be taken seriously. And I'd like to start laying that foundation. And the first start for me is creating my nonprofit, OCD Game Changers. The website will be up soon. What that is innovative therapists and advocates doing creative, wonderful projects to meet people or reach people worldwide to let them know there's hope, there's help, they're not alone. That therapy, even if you cannot afford it, we're going to create projects that can help you get access to something that can help give you hope. So more details on that will come. But as for now, I've been doing events. I did one in March here in Denver last March as well, and then this fall in the UK. So if you want more information about that, please email me at ocd.chrissie, CHRISSIE, @gmail.com, or visit my website. Thank you for listening today. As you can see, as an advocate, sometimes I get fired up. It all comes from love and empathy from my own experience and for the people that I work with. Again, if I did offend you with some of the stuff I said, I can have an open dialogue about this and hear you out too. And I would love to, because the more connections we make and the more we learn to understand each other, the more we're all breaking down the stigma, right? And we become a greater community and really can start impacting the entire world and making the change needed for those of us living with mental illness. My name is Chrissy. Thank you again, Mental Health and the Mighty, for always having me each month. And I look forward to seeing you next month in June. Oh my gosh, it's almost the end of the year. Bye.